MMA Boxing Talk here. This video is going to be a 2016 year in review. There's been so many amazing fights this year. It's been tremendous. By far the best year in UFC history. As Ariel Hawani keeps saying, it's most newsworthy year in UFC history. So many great fights, so many great events. I started my channel at the beginning of this year. The you know I started it January 9th, so it was a perfect year to start a channel like this. Um, anyway, I want to thank all my subscribers as well. So I just wanted to. I'm gonna later on in the video. I'm gonna talk about fighter of the year candidates and fight of the year candidates. Just so you know, I'll throw in a little stat here. There was also 10 new champions in 2016 in the UFC. Um, I'll go through them real quick. We had um, Miesha Tate, of course, beating Holly Holm. Amanda Nunes beating Holly Holm. At bantamweight, we had Dominic Cruz beating TJ Dillashaw at the beginning of the year. Cody Garbrandt just beating Dominic Cruz. Jose Aldo, you don't really have to count that, but he's a new champion, I guess. You know, he got given the title. Conor McGregor defeated Eddie Alvarez. Eddie Alvarez was a new champion. He defeated RDA. You had Tyron Woodley, of course, beating Robbie Lawler. Michael Bisping beating Luke Rockhold. And Stipe Miocic beating Fabricio Werdum. So now I want to just start off. The first card of the year was January 2nd. The main event was arguably the fight of the year. Robbie Lawler versus Carlos Condit. What a fight that was. One of the best round fives I've ever seen in my life. One of the best rounds, period. But to have that juice left, to have that determination those guys had in the fifth round was unbelievable. I was at a bar watching that fight, and I'd never seen anyone. I've never seen this happen before. At the end of the fight, at the end of that fifth round, everyone in the bar stood up and started clapping. It was unbelievable. And these are a lot of casual fans, not hardcore fans that were just blown away. They were amazed. And then a couple weeks later, January 17th, we had Dillashaw versus Cruz. That was a great fight, really close fight. Dominic Cruz, edging out the decision win. A lot of people thought Dillashaw deserved an immediate rematch. I was one of those people that thought that. Now it looks like Dillashaw is going to probably fight Garbrandt next, so it's funny how things work out. I can't go through every single card, but then the next one that really stands out in my mind. February 6th, we had Johnny Hendricks versus Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. That was when I really, my eyes were really open to Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. I knew he was good before that, but I mean, he had never done it to an elite fighter. And Hendricks at the time was really seen as an elite fighter. He had just recently at that time he had went 10 long rounds with Robbie Lawler, who was the champion at the time, and Wonderboy dispatched him in 3.5 minutes. First guy to ever stop Hendricks. Very impressive. And then we had, of course, Silva versus Bisping. Another great fight. One of the best fights of the year. Definitely very controversial to some. I didn't feel it was controversial. The knee landed about a second before the bell rang. Bisping, regardless, would have been saved by the bell. He wasn't out cold. He wasn't unconscious. It's the ref's decision to stop a fight. Actually, if you go about 5 or 6 videos back, I put out a video talking about that fight because Silva had recently, a couple weeks back, a month back, posted something about just still being sour about not getting the decision in that fight, which he really didn't deserve. Anyway, moving right along, we had March 5th. A couple days later, we had one of the biggest upsets of the year. Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz submitting Conor McGregor in the second round. Really humbling Conor McGregor. We saw him humble in defeat. We saw him gracious in defeat, and showing a lot of class at the post-fight press conference. He gained a lot of fans there. A lot of fans that might not have liked Conor McGregor beforehand, um, definitely I think opened up and seen that he is a true blue guy, good character guy. He just knows how to sell a fight. um, then we had Rothwell versus Dos Santos. Junior Dos Santos put on a boxing clinic against Rothwell. It was a good fight for him. I'll be curious to see what happens now because Junior, he might end up fighting Stipe next. Because Kane's out. Maybe Kane's out of the picture now, unless they do Junior Dos Santos versus Werdum. But apparently Werdum turned that fight down against Dos Santos. So maybe they'll give it to Dos Santos, or maybe they'll give it to Werdum, or they'll give it to Dos Santos, or they'll make them both fight, and the winner gets Stipe. I don't know. But I would like to see Dos Santos Stipe again because their first fight was super close. I scored at a draw, believe it or not. Then of course we had John Jones, April 23rd against OSP. John Jones not looking his normal self. Mind you, he was preparing for about 7-8 months for DC, and then all of a sudden you change for a very unorthodox, awkward power puncher in Ovince St. Preux. But John Jones got the job done. Mighty Mouse also stopped Cejudo in the first round on that card. Then we had Overeem knocking out Arlovsky on May 8th in Rotterdam, in Netherlands, his hometown, in which obviously, submitted Overeem to get his title shot. And then the next card, Werdum versus Miocic. Overeem was waiting patiently, ready to take on the winner. Werdum, Miocic. It was in Mexico. It was my cousin's bachelor party. I was watching that at the bar, and Miocic KO'd him in the first round. Caught Werdum running in. Great knockout by Miocic. A rematch would definitely be interesting. I'll be curious to see what happens there. Who Miocic fights next. And then one of the most anticipated fights for me of the year, anyway, was Thomas Almeida versus Cody No Love Garbrandt. Two undefeated fighters, two young guns, knocking everyone the fuck out. And it didn't last long. Cody Garbrandt knocked out Thomas Almeida in the first round. Unbelievable. Not many people were picking Cody Garbrandt. I'd say about 85% of the people were picking Thomas Almeida to win this. I was torn, but I ended up going with Cody Garbrandt, picking with my gut feeling, and it came true. Garbrandt, we all know what he's done since then. Then June 4th, we had Luke Rockhold versus Michael Bisping rematch. One of the biggest upsets of all time. Bisping with one eye knocks out Luke Rockhold, who had beat him before, who was seen as one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world. He still is. And Bisping just knocked him out. Bisping not even known for knockouts. So, very interesting. Great upset. Roy McDonald versus Stephen Thompson. I was there live to watch that. Great fight. Technical chess match. Then a couple weeks later, we had another upset. RDA losing to Eddie Alvarez a couple days before UFC 200. The day after, we had Ultimate Fighter finale. Joanna Jędrzejczyk versus Claudia Gadelha. That was a really good fight. Joanna just dominated the last 3 rounds. The strikes were so lopsided those last 3 rounds. I think it was something like 170 to 25 the strikes in those last 3 rounds for Joanna, which was insane. She had 5 times the amount of strikes in those last 3 rounds. Claudia just gassed. Then we had UFC 200, huge event. Definitely a bit of an letdown, no doubt. We had some big fights though on that card. Tate versus Nunes. Nunes looked spectacular, finishing Tate in the first round. We had Brock Lesnar, ground and pounding pretty well for the whole 15 minutes. Mark Hunt. We had DC neutralizing Silva, being a gentleman, not trying to ragdoll a legend. I have respect for that. And Aldo looked pretty good against Edgar. Not enough, in my opinion, to win a decision against Conor McGregor, but to outpoint Conor McGregor, not that good of a performance, but he looked good. Edgar was on a roll, and there was some other good fights on that card. But moving right along, a couple days after 200, we had Tony Ferguson versus Orlando Venata, which was a crazy fight, one of the most exciting fights of the year. That was the co-main event, and Lineker knocked out Michael McDonald in the main event. UFC 201, we had Robbie Lawler was defeated by Tyron Woodley. Woodley becomes a new champion. And then August 20th, Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz rematch, which was one of the best fights of the year, one of the best fights of all time. So many momentum swings in that fight. Conor McGregor showing that he's not just a knockout artist. He can win a decision. He can be calm. He can be poised. He can be conservative. He can be smart in there. And, he did win that fight. I'm sorry, Diaz fans. You can't score it for Diaz. I mean, you can't score it for Diaz. He won 2 rounds. That was it. Conor won 3, clear as day. The second round, there's no controversy. Conor dropped him twice. Diaz, was successful the last minute of the round, but Conor whooped his ass the 4 minutes before that in the second round. So Conor winning, rounds 1, 2, and 4 clearly. 5 was pretty close, but I mean Diaz won it anyway. Maia just destroyed Carlos Condit. About a week later, poor Condit, I felt bad for him. Then UFC 203, we had Stipe Miocic defending his title, knocking out Alistair Overeem. Great performance by Miocic. He showed his chin. He showed just well-roundedness in that fight. Just a savage. Just a savage. He's gonna be a tough guy to beat. And also on that card, we had CM Punk versus Mickey Gall. Jimmy Rivera also defeated Uriah Faber in a unanimous decision on that card. Oh, and it's interesting. I heard someone say that they want, and I thought it was a great idea. Ariel Helwani, I think, put it out. Might as well have another card in Cleveland. Miocic defending his title as the headliner, and you have Cody No Love Garbrandt versus T.J. Dillashaw in the co-main event. I think that would be amazing. Miocic and Garbrandt, 2 guys from Ohio. That'd be crazy. Cleveland would just love that. I'm going to skip a few cards here. Bisping Henderson 2, another amazing fight. Bisping really getting hurt a couple times early in that fight, especially the first round. It looked like he was going to get stopped. Henderson, definitely got outstruck. He definitely got outworked. I definitely thought Bisping did enough to win that fight. It was controversial, because Bisping won the rounds. He was the more active fighter, but he got hurt. But the moments that Henderson was so dominant, they were small moments in the fight. They didn't last a whole lot. They didn't last long. Bisping really, dominated that fight for 17, 18 minutes. You know what I mean? It's tough to say, but the way the scoring works, Bisping won that. Another amazing fight, another great, one of the best fights of the year was Tony Ferguson versus RDA, which just took place November 5th. That was phenomenal. I mean, Tony Ferguson just took all of RDA's, hardest shots and just kept coming forward, picking RDA apart. He fucked RDA up way worse than than Khabib beat RDA. Of course, Khabib has a way different style. He's not a guy that's gonna fuck your face up and press forward and just pick you apart on the feet. He's a grappler, but that was an amazing fight. And then the best card of the year, MSG UFC 205. Conor McGregor becoming 2-weight world champion. We had another amazing fight, Tyron Woodley versus Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. There has to be a rematch there. That was a draw. I thought that was a fair draw. Both guys did well. I mean, yeah, both guys definitely did well. And Joanna Jędrzejczyk defending her title against Karolina Kowalkiewicz. Kowalkiewicz gave him some serious trouble in that fourth round, but other than that, it was a dominant win by Joanna Champion. And then, we had, let's see here. Mighty Mouse defending his title against, can't remember his name. Tim Elliott, of course, the winner of the Ultimate Fighter. And a really, really great fight, bit controversial, was Joseph Benavidez versus Henry Cejudo. I thought Henry Cejudo won that fight, but it was really good. Close fight. Can't be mad at that fight or the decision. We had a couple heavyweights in Albany on December 9th. Derek Lewis stopping Abdurakhimov. And in the co-main event, who is really on my radar, is Francis Ngannou submits Anthony Hamilton in the first round. Super, super strong athlete, Francis Ngannou is. Heavy power. Heavy hands, I should say. Explosive. Just a big guy, scary guy. Seems pretty technical, smart as well. He's going to be a tough guy to beat. And he's fighting Andrei Arlovski at the end of this month. So look forward to that. That's on the Shevchenko Juliana Pena card, and the co-main event is Cowboy versus Masvidal, which will be a great fight. Plus we got Ngannou taking on Arlovski, and Arlovski we all know comes to fight, so it's going to be a good fight, good card. And then another amazing card, one of the more underrated cards. Definitely a card, UFC 206 I'm talking about, which just took place, 20 days ago. People were disappointed because Rumble, DC were off the card. But the card delivered beyond anyone's expectations. We had two of the best knockouts of the year. We had Lando Venata knocking out John Makdessi. Unbelievable wheel kick to the face. And then Donald Cerrone knocking out Matt Brown. That was tremendous. We had... who else was on that card? Of course, Anthony Pettis was stopped by Max Holloway. Max Holloway, the first guy to stop Anthony Pettis. Holloway becoming the interim champion. He should be fighting Jose Aldo. And then of course on that card, one of the best fights of the year. Definitely the best three-round fight of the year was Cub Swanson versus Doo Ho Choi. Phenomenal fight. I picked Doo Ho Choi to win that, but Cub Swanson just was phenomenal in that fight and just showed way more wrinkles to his game. And it was a great fight, but he definitely beat Doo Ho Choi in that contest. And then second last card of the year, we had Paige VanZant losing to Michelle Waterson by rear naked choke. And Mickey Gall submitting Sage Northcutt by rear naked choke. And also, that was Uriah Faber's farewell fight. Farewell to a legend. Someone who was a pioneer in the lower weight classes. Someone that paved the way for the smaller guys. And, Uriah Faber, hats off to him. What a great career. He was never a UFC champion. But it is interesting because if the UFC would have bought the WEC or merged the WEC earlier, sooner, say in 2006, 2007, Uriah Faber would have been a UFC champion. And when he was champion of the WEC, he was the best in the world. So he might not have been a UFC champion, but that's just because of bad timing, really. If he would have came up a little later, he might have been a UFC champion. Or if the UFC bought the WC earlier. Regardless, he's a legend. He's beat so many great guys. He's had tough times against, the top two guys in the division, but always put up a great fight. Tremendous amount of heart. Last card of the year we just saw a couple days ago. Unreal card. Cody No Love Garbrandt defeats Dominic Cruz in one of the most exciting fights of the year. Cody Garbrandt becoming of age in that fight, showing all the wrinkles in his game. Not just an angry slugger, not a crazy emotional fighter. all the trash talk that went into the fight beforehand had no effect on Cody Garbrandt. He's just a very passionate guy. He loves fighting, and he's just not going to win a mental battle with Dominic Cruz, a verbal mental battle. That's not what he does. But man, oh man, he fucked with Dominic Cruz in that fight mentally, emotionally. Dominic Cruz couldn't adjust. Cody Garbrandt wasn't biting on any of his feints. Dominic Cruz would definitely put up a better fight in the second in a rematch, but I still don't think it's going to be enough to beat Garbrandt. If he's not going to be biting on his feints, and he doesn't have the hand speed, he doesn't have the power, he doesn't have the youth. Clearly, he doesn't have I think Garbrandt showed that he has more stamina in that fight. Cruz didn't slow down a whole lot, but Garbrandt was sharp right to the end. That's a tough fight for Dominic Cruz, but I think he could do better in the rematch. But like I said, I don't think he beats him in the rematch. But TJ Dillashaw is the fight to make. I think Dillashaw's got a better chance. But I think Garbrandt has a better chance of stopping Dillashaw compared to a Dominic Cruz. Dillashaw's a little more aggressive. He's a little more open to be hit. But he uses good footwork and movement. But so does Cody Garbrandt. So that's a great fight. I cannot wait for that. Like I said, they should put that card in Ohio and Cleveland and have Stipe Miocic on that card as well. 2 title fights. And Ronda Rousey losing to Amanda Nunes in 48 seconds to cap off the year. Such a crazy year. We started with one of the best fights of the year, Robbie Lawler versus Carlos Condit. We end with one of the best fights of the year, or one of the best performances of the year, especially, and a surprising upset. Cody Garbrandt literally doing what Dominic Cruz does to all his opponents, and Ronda Rousey to finish out the year with the end of her career in the most eventful year in UFC history and the most financially the most financially successful year in UFC history as well. Okay, so I'm not going to make this much longer, but now I just want to quickly go and talk about. Actually, I'm going to do that in a separate video. This one's long enough. I'll be putting out a video soon for Fighter of the Year candidate and Fight of the Year candidate. That's it for this one. If you liked the video, subscribe. Check me out on Twitter at MMA Boxing Talk 1. Peace.